What exactly is Deion saying here?
Here's the way I look at it. Number one, the one that stands out on the list in terms of the test is that he's black.
Isn't it odd that you're decrying, you're frustrated with, your frustration is that they are in it for likes and clicks?
You're talking your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man. Right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins.
And your answer is to invite cameras into your pregame speech?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It seemed very hypocritical, yeah.
It was planned and rehearsed, and he was out to embarrass them.
I hope all those people that have been watching every week are watching this week.
I think they are.
The information that was traded was a heavy emphasis on wanting to make sure that you beat him, not because you need the W, but because you want to see him crash and burn.
You creeps got receipts. My peeps get dirty like cleats. Why? May you rest in peace with my sycamore style.
Welcome to the Dark Times channel. And before I go ahead and get started, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're not new to the channel and you enjoy the content so far on this channel, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me as well. And so let's go ahead and get into it. This isn't going to be a very long video at all, but I definitely wanted to take a second to chime in on some of the allegations that have been floating around that got put out there by Keyshawn Johnson.
They want to see failure. Remember yesterday I talked and people looked at me and I was getting texts like, oh man, you lying, stop making stuff up. No, I ain't got to make nothing up. The truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, yes, coaches do trade information week in and week out, just like players trade information. But the information that was traded was a heavy emphasis on wanting to make sure that you beat him, not because you need the W, but because you want to see him crash and burn.
And like Keyshawn Johnson said, this is nothing new. Coaches trading information, players trading information, these kind of things happen. That's not out of the ordinary. But what was out of the ordinary was the reason why. It wasn't to try to win a football game. It was more than that. It was to try to embarrass Deion and to try to put Deion Sanders in his proverbial place, whatever that may be and whatever people might think that is. That was the goal last Saturday. And despite Oregon's coach saying all the right things pregame, talking about how Deion Sanders was good for football, he was good for the NCAA, and that he's done great things at Colorado, changing the culture around. Despite all that, the reality of how he really felt was the total opposite. And that was evident by his pregame speech. It would have been one thing if Oregon was going out there trying to compete at the highest level, trying to win the football game, trying to dominate on both sides of the ball, as they did. That would have been one thing. But it's another thing entirely to go out there and receive information from coaches around different colleges for the sole purpose of trying to embarrass Deion Sanders and Colorado University. And of course, it's not outside the bounds. It's not something that's illegal. It's not even something that's really frowned upon. And so what are we talking about? We're talking about the subtext and the nature of what took place, or what allegedly took place by different coaches reaching out to Oregon. And so the subtext was that we don't want Deion Sanders. We don't want this uppity Deion Sanders coming out here thinking that he can compete on this football field. And we want to rub it in. We don't want to just beat Deion Sanders. We want to embarrass Deion Sanders.
They know this. Even Nick Saban 2 years ago made a slick comment about Travis Hunter being able to flip from Florida State to Jackson State, that Deion Sanders gave him $1 million to do so.
He did.
Because that's just the rumor mill or whatever the case is. Rather than saying he's a good recruiter, and the kid wants to learn from the greatest corner to ever face this earth, he says the only reason why he got him is because a HBCU school came up with $1 million. Like Deion said, they don't even pay me $1 million. So why would I pay a college kid $1 million to come to a HBC school where our water is brown? But that is where their minds are when they start thinking about a successful black man being able to do something that they've done for years.
And the Oregon coach made it abundantly clear. You could see a look of vitriol on the Oregon coach's face as he was giving his pregame speech. And something else that I noticed as they were coming out the tunnel, and I was able to get a picture of this the other day, as they were coming out the tunnel, There was a look of confidence on the face of the coach and on the face of the quarterback that you rarely see. And so I thought about this, and it was probably for a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a coach that is coming from Georgia, a university that won back-to-back national titles. And a coach like this, he knows what it takes to win. And so he knows that Oregon is a superior team. He knows that he's got the better team, especially in the trenches. He knows that he has the better defensive line. He knows that he has the better offensive line. And so on paper, there's no way that a Colorado should be able to beat them, which is indeed why they were favored to win by 21. And so on paper, there's no way that a Colorado has any business hanging with the Oregon. And number two, him and his quarterback and the rest of his team are confident because they know they have information, more information than he's probably received in his life on any given team, which is why he wanted the cameras in the locker room. He wanted to make it personal. He wanted to talk about they're about substance and not about clicks. He wanted to separate himself from a Deion Sanders. He wanted to put it on full blast. And then if that wasn't enough, when it's 35-0 at halftime, you continue to talk and you continue to rub it in, because make no mistake about it, had that been Deion Sanders, had that been Colorado, that was up by halftime, that was up by 35 or 42 by halftime, whatever the score was, had that been Deion Sanders that said that, they would have flipped the script. The whole narrative around Deion Sanders would have been different. Oh, look at Deion, he's got his men fired up and ready to go. No, the whole narrative would have been different. They would have been questioning the sportsmanship of Deion Sanders. They would have been questioning the leadership of Deion Sanders. They would have been questioning the example that he's setting for young men. So the whole narrative would have been different had it been Deion up at halftime, still talking big-ish. And so this whole game and this whole setup was on some humiliation type stuff. It was more than a football game. It was about them making a point and trying to quiet this proverbial storm, which is Colorado and Deion Sanders, that has been sweeping across the nation. But unfortunately for them, it's going to have the opposite effect. It's going to have the opposite effect. And I liken Deion Sanders to a Trump. In the eyes of many, Trump can do no wrong. Whatever he's on trial for, he didn't do it. Whatever he's accused of, he didn't do it. Because it's not about him, it's about what he stands for in the eyes of some. And it's the same thing with Deion Sanders. It's not about Deion Sanders. That's what a lot of people can't understand. It's not about Colorado. It's about what he stands for. Being unapologetic, being able to do it your way in the face of opposition. And so you can't stop something like this. You can't quiet something like this. They can get their shots in and take their shots right now while Deion Sanders is still trying to construct the team that he just inherited a year ago or less than a year ago. They can get those shots in now. That's the best they can do. Because come this time next year, he's going to be loaded up. And oh yeah, he's going to have a Warren Sapp on his staff to help coach his defensive line. You're talking about one of the best and most intense, most feared defensive line players of all time. He's also talking to a Terrell Owens to try to get him on the staff to be able to coach a wide receiver. And so you're talking about not only getting a brand new batch of skilled players and interior players, but you're also talking about adding on to your coaching staff. And these are not only some of the best players of all time, but some of the most intense players of all time. And so if just half, or at the very least a fraction of their intensity rubs off on some of these players, that's a wrap. That's a wrap. And so the best that they can do is try to get their shots in now. But it's only going to backfire because you're going to have recruits, high school recruits, looking at a school like Oregon, looking at a coach at Oregon and seeing how he's handling this situation and looking at Deion Sanders in Colorado as underdogs, people that the media and coaches are rooting against. And that makes certain individuals want to join even more. I want to be a part of building this university up. I don't want to go to an Alabama or an Oregon that's already been established for decades. I want to go somewhere where I can build. That's Deion, and I'm sure he's doing it. If I'm him, that's what I'm pitching. I'm preaching you can be coached by top-notch NFL Hall of Fame players. You can be a part of building something that's never been done before, or at least to the level that he's trying to get it to. And oh yeah, by the way, I know how to get those NIL dollars for you. And so next year is going to be exciting, to say the least. And it's still going to be a level of excitement this year, despite how many wins and losses that they actually wind up with. I think it's going to be another tough game against USC this weekend, a game that they have no business winning, but I'm not going to count them out. Anything can happen. That's why they lace them up on Saturday. But on paper, it's another school that they have no business competing with, at least not yet, especially when you factor in that they're missing their best player on offense as well as defense. But it's a game that we're all still definitely looking forward to, but we're going to have to see how it plays out. And hopefully it's a good, entertaining game. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. And hopefully they don't have any bounties out on some of these players. And that's another thing that's been going around, that there's these possible bounties that could be out on some of these players. You never know with football. It's something that's happened before on the NFL level. And so I'm sure that's a possibility. And so hopefully they're able to stay safe and everybody's able to play at their best. And at the end of the day, at the very least, hopefully we get a good, entertaining game. And so I think that's going to be a wrap for this particular video. If you guys haven't hit the like button already, please go ahead and do so. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you go ahead and do that as well. And as usual, peace, chaos.